The Dodgers and Brewers entered this series with the kind of intensity that can turn a routine baseball play into a major talking point. But when Shohei Ohtani became involved in a controversial moment, the situation reportedly escalated far beyond what anyone expected. A single play involving Ohtani was said to have sparked heated reactions, with questions immediately surrounding the nature of the contact and whether it crossed the line between aggressive baseball and unnecessary danger. For the Dodgers, this was especially concerning because Ohtani is one of the most important players on the roster, not only because of what he does at the plate, but because of the larger plan the organization has for him on the mound, and that is where this story becomes even more interesting. Because while attention may have focused on the reported collision, the bigger question surrounding Ohtani remains the same. When will the Dodgers finally allow their two-way superstar to return to pitching, and how carefully will they manage him once he does? Before we get into everything, make sure you subscribe to Baseball Pulse and turn on notifications because we are covering the biggest Dodgers and MLB stories as they develop. The reported incident began during a highly competitive game between Los Angeles and Milwaukee. Ohtani put the ball in play and immediately used his speed to put pressure on the Brewers' defense. That ability to turn an ordinary hit into an opportunity is one of the biggest reasons Ohtani is so difficult to defend. He does not simply wait for the next play. The moment he reaches base, defenders have to think about his speed, his positioning, and the possibility that he could take an extra base. According to reports surrounding the incident, Ohtani was attempting to advance when contact occurred with a Brewers player. The collision was described as heavy, and the situation immediately attracted attention from both teams. However, it is important to separate what was observed from what has actually been established. The contact itself can be evaluated through video, but claims about whether a player intentionally moved into Ohtani's path require much stronger evidence. There has been debate over whether the contact was simply an aggressive baseball play or something more unnecessary. That distinction matters. Baseball is an extremely competitive sport. Runners try to gain every possible advantage, while defenders try to complete outs as quickly as possible. Contact can sometimes happen during fast-moving plays, but player safety remains extremely important. When Ohtani went down after the reported collision, the reaction around the Dodgers reportedly became intense. His teammates were concerned, and emotions began rising around the field. The situation eventually led to players from both sides confronting one another, with coaches and umpires stepping in to prevent the argument from becoming even more serious. Whenever emotions rise between two competitive teams, there is always a risk that one incident can completely change the atmosphere of a game. And because the player involved was Ohtani, the reaction was naturally even stronger. Ohtani is not just another player on the Dodgers roster. He is one of the most recognizable stars in baseball, and every injury concern involving him immediately receives enormous attention. That is also why fans and analysts were quick to question whether MLB should review the play if there was evidence that the contact went beyond what was necessary. At the same time, it is important not to label the Brewers player as intentionally trying to injure Ohtani without confirmed evidence. That decision ultimately belongs to the league. But while the collision story attracted headlines, there was another Ohtani storyline that could have an even bigger impact on the Dodgers' season: his pitching comeback. Ohtani's return to the mound has been one of the most closely watched stories surrounding Los Angeles. After spending time recovering and gradually rebuilding his throwing program, the Dodgers have continued to approach his pitching workload carefully. That caution makes sense. Ohtani is attempting something extremely difficult. He is not simply returning as a pitcher after time away. He is also continuing to contribute as one of the Dodgers' most dangerous hitters. That means his body has to handle the demands of both sides of the game. Every bullpen session matters, every throwing progression matters, and every sign of discomfort can potentially change the timetable. Reports have indicated that the Dodgers have been targeting a possible September return to pitching, although that should be viewed as a target rather than a guaranteed date. Manager Dave Roberts has previously discussed the possibility of Ohtani building up at the major league level rather than necessarily requiring a traditional minor league rehabilitation assignment. That would be an unusual approach, but it could make sense if the Dodgers believe he is physically ready to compete while still needing to build up his workload. Instead of immediately asking Ohtani to throw a full starter's workload, Los Angeles could potentially begin with shorter appearances and gradually increase his pitch count. Think of it as a controlled staircase rather than one giant jump. The first outing could be limited. Then the next one could become slightly longer. If his body responds well, the workload could continue increasing, and eventually, the Dodgers could determine whether he is ready to handle a traditional starting role. That approach could become extremely important when the postseason arrives, because the Dodgers do not simply need Ohtani to pitch again, they need him to be healthy when the games matter most. A rushed comeback could create problems later. A carefully managed comeback could give Los Angeles another major weapon for October. That is why the Dodgers' rotation depth is so important. If the team has enough reliable starting pitching around Ohtani, there is much less pressure to accelerate his return, and that gives the organization freedom. Instead of saying, "We need Ohtani back immediately," the Dodgers can say, "We will bring him back when he is ready." That difference could be enormous. If Ohtani eventually returns to anything close to his previous pitching form, the impact on the Dodgers could be dramatic. He would give the team another powerful option in the rotation while continuing to provide elite offensive production. That is the unique advantage of having a genuine two-way superstar. A normal starting pitcher helps the team once every several days. The proper question is whether the play followed the rules and whether MLB believes additional action is necessary. A two-way player can influence games in completely different ways, and that is exactly why the Dodgers are likely to remain patient. The biggest challenge will be workload. Even if Ohtani feels healthy enough to pitch, the Dodgers still have to determine how many innings he can safely handle, how quickly his pitch count can increase, and whether his mechanics remain consistent as his workload rises. Pitching is not simply about throwing a few innings. A starter has to repeat mechanics over and over again while dealing with fatigue. That is why the Dodgers will likely watch Ohtani's recovery after every throwing session. If his body responds positively, the progression can continue. If discomfort returns, the organization can slow things down. And that brings us back to the larger picture. The reported collision with Milwaukee may have created another emotional moment surrounding Ohtani, but the Dodgers' real priority is much bigger than one game. It is about getting Ohtani through the rest of the season healthy enough to contribute at the highest possible level. The Dodgers have postseason ambitions, and Ohtani is obviously a major part of those plans, but the organization has to balance short-term urgency with long-term health. There is no guarantee that Ohtani will return to the mound on a specific September date. There is also no guarantee that he will immediately throw the number of innings he was capable of handling before his injury. What the Dodgers can control is the progression. They can control the workload. They can monitor his mechanics. They can evaluate how his body responds, and they can make adjustments along the way. If everything goes according to plan, September could mark the beginning of a fascinating new chapter. Ohtani could return to pitching gradually, build his workload, continue hitting, and potentially enter the postseason as a genuine two-way threat once again. For the Dodgers, that possibility is enormous. For MLB fans, it could become one of the biggest storylines of the final stretch of the season. But for now, patience remains the key word. The Dodgers do not need Ohtani back tomorrow. They need him ready when the games matter most, and if Los Angeles can successfully manage that balance, the reward could be enormous. A healthy Ohtani returning to the mound late in the season could give the Dodgers an entirely different level of flexibility heading into October. So, what do you think? Should the Dodgers take an extremely cautious approach with Ohtani's pitching comeback, even if that means limiting his innings during the regular season? Or should they gradually increase his workload as soon as he proves he is healthy? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this Dodgers and Shohei Ohtani breakdown, make sure to subscribe to Baseball Pulse, turn on notifications and share this video with another MLB fan. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next one.